Well. Floyd House Flicks Blacks in Cinema Sunday. Looks like we're doing this mobile again. I like it. But it's just going to be a reintroduction into what's next for Floyd House Flicks. All right, Floyd House Flicks Blacks in Cinema Sunday. The sun shines on me because I am great. Stand by. Let me make this turn to get away from the gleam and the glare. There we go. Floyd House Flicks Blacks in Cinema Sunday. Blacks in Cinema Sunday is where we profile the Black experience in film. New take. Black experience in film via the gifts and the wonderful contributions of Black actors and filmmakers. We're going to talk about stuff today. We're going to talk about our profiled film, which was Buck and the Preacher. Buck and the Preacher was a 1972 film directed by Sidney Poitier. What do you know about Sidney Poitier? Sidney Poitier, genius. This cat was one of the premier actors of our time and was not taken into consideration at first for a lot of roles that he had. It was like he won an Academy Award for a role that was not written for him. All right, but we're not gonna go that far. What we're gonna do is we're gonna deal with Buck and the Preacher. Sidney Poitier, Ruby Dee, Harry Belafonte, another actor, magnificent, Harry Belafonte, another, Ruby Dee, amazing. So the necessity of the story in regard to Buck and the Preacher, there was a Black man helping other Blacks. This is post-slavery, helping them migrate and giving them the opportunity to be able to buy land and live somewhere. And people opposed to free slaves or free men moving around the country would try to stop them, tell them, go back to where you came from, there's nothing for you here. Now, this is a cross-country ordeal that these people are dealing with, and they are confronted by white Americans established that have an issue with Blacks moving across the country and standing up on their own. So of course they terrorize them, chase them away, steal their money, steal their provisions, rape their women. Typical storyline stuff. But Buck, played by Sidney Poitier, wouldn't have any parts of it. So he would go after these cats, and it was in cinema on a primarily did not cater to African Americans. We saw Westerns because at that particular time, I didn't see myself in that situation. I saw Native Americans and I saw white people. I didn't see Black people in movies like that. So it was like, I didn't think that there was any space there for me. So it never really appealed to me. And apparently there was a reason for that. And I was not the only person to take on that thinking. Because Sidney Poitier stepped away from his mainstream career. Because at one point, when he was doing things like In the Heat of the Night and To Sir with Love and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner and things like that, he was a different person. He was a different character. So in 1972, when he took on Buck and the Preacher, it was just a different thing. So he was doing a service to people that looked like him, to children who felt the same way that I did, that did not see themselves reflected in something like a Western. Is it to be said that there were no Black people in the Midwest and in the West? Is that what I'm to understand? Because I didn't see us. You know, it's like if you go watch Oklahoma, the play, the musical, or the movie adaptation of Oklahoma. Little Black didn't seem right, didn't feel right. It's not for me. So Buck and the Preacher addressed that issue. So of course, you know, they're dealing with similar to what happened in Tulsa. And they go, and there's a thriving community, And all of a sudden, no, this can't be. So we're going to destroy it because it's not ours, or we're jealous, or we just don't like you, or whatever the thinking was. I don't know what the thinking was. All I know is that that's what people in that era had to deal with. And it's pretty sad to where you have to create your own genre just to be included in a conversation. Number one, really, I don't know why a lot of people feel like they need to be included in the conversation, but that's neither here nor there, and not much you can do about that. But it's like, why do we have to create something like BET, Black Entertainment Television? Why did that have to be created? It had to be created because there was no room for black entertainment at that point on television. And when you think about shows like The Jeffersons and Good Times and Sanford and Son, all those shows, black writers, black actors, but they didn't own any of that. They didn't own any of that. Anybody that's still living that was doing those types of things, they're not getting any sort of royalties for those things. They're not getting anything. Nothing. Which is why you see Jimmy Walker on commercials selling insurance, or doing something crazy, whatever. That's just how that is. They're not making any money from that. So they had to create Buck and the Preacher to make young black kids, and honestly black men, feel included or feel empowered by watching characters like that do what they do and exist in how they exist. There was a very poignant line in the film when Buck had a relationship with the Native Americans in the area. They would allow him passage. He would pay them, X amount of money, passage for the people that he was trying to help fit into their settlements. He says, okay, we'll pay you X amount. We have 40 people, we'll pay you X amount, let them have passage, and please provide protection for them while they're passing through, and allow them, if they need to, allow them to slaughter a buffalo or two or whatever. And the Native Americans, they had a relationship with them, but the Native Americans said very clearly, we had all of this land, and they said it in their native language, and they had a translator. We had all of this land, but now we're pushed up against the mountain, and you fought with the white man against us in this war. And Buck had to concede and say, well, I'm not in the army anymore. He's not in the army anymore. It's to say, I'm not with them anymore. Now, back in the days, slavery days, and maybe an inch before, right around post-slavery, and the blacks had to join or just be discarded, some sort of fight against the white man's enemy. And I'll say it frankly because that's what the conversation was. And at the time, it was the Native Americans. They were forced to do that. It wasn't a choice. You had to do it. It was part of your servitude. You gear up and you do what you're told. And that's a mindset that a lot of early African Americans had been conditioned to understand. It was just something that they did via conditioning, which is still happening to this day. There are a lot of African Americans that are still very much conditioned and still very afraid to stand up and speak. And it's outrageous. But one thing I will say in this film, which in my opinion, if that film was made in this day and age, it would have been a little different. But they did not say the N-word once. None that I saw. They did not use the N-word, which is unusual, because there was a scene where Buck and the preacher played by Harry Belafonte, who was also a grifter for the most part, but they ran up into this brothel, and the woman said, "What y'all doing in here?" You better get out of here now. You guys. You people. Which was not ultra realistic. And I know what Mr. Poitier was doing when he did it, because he was in control of that situation, and that word would not be used on his platform, which I applaud. Wonderful. But for authenticity's sake, you'd have to use it. It's sort of like someone calls you the N-word, and then impulsively you might give them a rap in the mouth. Impulsively. Not because you're an angry person, but because someone called you a word that for a black man or woman has been of detriment to us, used in that fashion forever. I was going to try to put a number to it. Forever. Since creation of the word. Directed to us in that fashion. So it's one of those things that I can give acknowledgement to Mr. Poitier for not using that word in his film, or really any of his films, but except when you move into some of his later work. But it was interesting to see the relationship between the Native Americans and the African Americans. The Native Americans had a legitimate conversation about, you were against us in the war, and now you want us to help. But at the same time, it seemed like the Native Americans understood, I know it wasn't by choice. And that's fair. That's fair. And I think that in the film, their relationship was very interesting, almost akin to what we saw in Wakanda Forever, or what could have been, what will be in the future films. You know, we're not necessarily friends, but we're not enemies. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. That's a conversation that most minorities that are affected by racism or classism or anything like that should do. Pair up. Pair up. I'm not calling anyone an enemy to the people, but if you are causing harm to anybody based on their skin color or class, then you are a problem. You are a problem. I'm speaking specifically to those that are a problem. I'm not going to get on anywhere and be like, well, these people. No, that's not it. It's the people that are causing the problem, and it's the people that are not doing anything to help remedy the issue that are the problem. Just keep it a buck. You know what it is. You know what it is. This is what causes a lot of strife and a lot of disharmony in the world. Is people and their opinions of other people. Nobody cares what you think. This either is right or it's wrong. And if you're on the side of wrong in silence, then you are wrong. So, that's probably all I'm going to say about that. But I think Buck and the Preacher was a wonderful window into the imagination of young black men in the 1970s. People that had to grow up pre-1970s and watch Westerns with John Wayne and all the like. You know, people who were just stars, Gene Autry and all this, whatever, I don't know. I didn't watch Westerns, so I can't sit and reel or rap off names. James Colburn, things like that. Yul Brynner. I got a few. But we didn't see ourselves in those movies. At least not until the 70s and on. We didn't see ourselves in those films. Maybe one or two in the early 1960s or whatever. And the guy was treated like absolute shit. So no, that's not gonna work. We need to see us as African American people win in that wrong should win all the time because no. We need to see ourselves win in a situation like that sometimes, because sometimes we do win, sometimes we lose. But in cinema, we never won. You died first in the horror movies. It's a trope. It's a trope. The only horror movie that you saw us live, and sadly, is Night of the Living Dead, where the black character pretty much saved. He did his thing. He helped everybody, tried to keep everybody safe. What did they do at the end? They shot him. Dude said, hey, got another one for the fire. You know what the creepy thing about that statement is? Is that's what they used to do when they used to hang black people. A lot of times they would hang them, cut them down, and throw them on the fire, and watch them burn. How's that for a conversation? Was that an accident in that movie? I don't think so, because George Romero was the type that he was a risk taker. That's why the movie was the way that it was. George Romero understood the shortcomings of the film world. He understood the inequity. That's why he did what he did. But at the end of the day, to bring it all back home, bow. All right, y'all, got another one for the fire. Put them with the rest of them. No coincidences here. None. All right, so Buck in the Preacher. Thank you, Sidney Poitier. Thank you, Mr. Sidney Poitier. Thank you, Mr. Harry Belafonte. Thank you, Miss Ruby D. Thank you for your offerings to us as African American people who can appreciate the fact that we existed in these times. We deserve representation in these times. And it was a wonderful situation to watch us thrive and win in these times, especially when what was being done to the people was wrong. And thank you to the Native Americans that I know historically have supported this conversation. Thank you for all people that support this conversation of equality. Treat people like people. Love people for people. That's a theme for me and Blacks in Cinema Sunday. Love each other for who you are. Love us all. We're all human beings. We all deserve the same treatment. Equality is point A. So thank you very much. This has been Blacks in Cinema Sunday. Buck and the Preacher in the bag. Great movie. Criterion sale. It's on sale right now. Criterion has it. Barnes & Noble has it. Amazon has it. Go pick up Buck and the Preacher. You'll love it like I loved it. First time ever watching it. I appreciated it, and I appreciate you for joining me for Blacks in Cinema Sunday this day. We are going to do it again next Sunday. What are we going to watch? I don't know. But when we do, you'll be the first to know. News bulletin, if you haven't already seen. Tomorrow, we will be resuming the Physical Media Commute, Season 2. We're going to start tomorrow. It's going to be tomorrow afternoon. We're going to do Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as normal. Mondays, Wednesdays, Friday. It's going to happen in the afternoon, probably at around like 1:30, 2 o'clock. And we're going to start all over again. We're going to have a blast like we used to. And that's what it's going to be all about. Blacks in Cinema Sunday, Physical Media Commute, Floyd House Flicks. We're in the building. Thank you for being here. Salute. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Floyd House Flicks.